Thank you. We know that there is SDS reporting about activism against McDonald's, including the London Greenpeace campaign, but also other campaigning acts, including non-violent direct action. Was that a concern to Special Branch?
We were certainly interested, yes.
What was being done with the intelligence that was being gathered?
I don't know at this stage, but I would assume we pass it on to the security service and uniform branch where necessary if we had that sort of information.
And what did you understand that uniform branch would be doing with it?
Oh, policing any demonstrations outside McDonald's buildings.
Would they have been warning McDonald's about forthcoming events?
That I don't know.
Is that possible?
Certainly it would be possible, yes.
Did you have any contact personally with the security team at McDonald's?
No.
Did you ever know a man called Sid Nicholson?
His name doesn't mean anything to me now, I'm afraid.
Head of security at McDonald's and a former superintendent in the Metropolitan Police Service?
No, I'm afraid I don't remember him.
Or Terry Carroll?
No.
Did Bob Lambert tell you what role he was playing in the London Greenpeace campaign against McDonald's?
He probably did, but I can't remember now.
I appreciate it's an ambitious question in the circumstances, but can you help us with whether or not he told you that he had been involved in the production of leaflets for the campaign?
I think he may have said something about producing leaflets. Yes, I think so, but I'm not certain.
Can you recall anything further about what he said to you, or might have said to you?
Not now, no.
Could we take the document down now, please, and have 742720? It's tab B96, sir. Thank you. This is a report dated the 10th of October 1986. It's about the Animal Liberation Front. I'm interested in paragraph 3, please. Could we have that expanded? It's a report about the printing of leaflets. In conversation, Privacy is enthusiastic about this new venture. He believes it will be possible to produce more material along the lines of the recent interviews with ALF activists, which included directions for making incendiary devices. Apart from printing the regular ALF action reports and ALF SG newsletter, he anticipates orders from local animal rights and anarchist groups who will be well suited to his competitive rates. In fact, one of his first orders is from London Greenpeace for the printing of a new McDonald's fact sheet, a clearly libelous publication certain to be of interest to the lawyers of this worldwide hamburger chain. If we could zoom back out again, please, and if we could go to see who signed the report at the end. That's signed by Eric Docker, but is it likely that you would have seen it as well?
86. It's possible. In fact, it might be probable, yes.
What was the relevance of reporting that a leaflet was clearly libelous?
Oh, I don't know.
What would have been done with that intelligence?
Well, we pass it on as usual to Box, and if necessary, we could pass it on to Uniform Branch for interest. But I can't remember doing any of this.
Are you able to help us with whether or not McDonald's would have been informed that this was happening?
I don't know that they were.
Could we take that document down now, please? And could we have up, moving on to a different topic, 20237. If we expand that, please. It's an SDS report signed by you. The following information has been received from a secret and reliable source. The Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp holds a current account at the National Westminster Bank, 270 Upper Street, North 1. And there are the bank details, which we've redacted. There are at present 7 authorised signatories for the account. And you will see that one of your undercover officers, Lee Bonser, is amongst them. Why was it necessary to report the Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp bank account details?
It was intelligence, giving an idea of the background of this organisation. No immediate use, but it was probably taken and the off chance that it would be necessary or would be useful.
Was there any guidance about the circumstances in which it was acceptable to record confidential information such as this?
I'm not aware of any, no.
Did you address your mind to the legality of recording intelligence such as this?
No, I don't think I did.
Were the Greenham Common women a sufficient threat in terms of criminality to justify recording their bank details?
They could have been subsequently, they weren't at the time.
Can I infer from that answer that this was recorded then just in case?
I don't remember the form, but it's probably that's the reason why we kept it.
Would you accept now that it was excessively intrusive?
Probably.
Can we take that down now? I could take you to a very similar report which shows that HN88 was a signatory for Hackney CND's bank account. But if
yes.
I were to do that, would the substance of your answers be any different?
No, I don't think so.
Your officers would from time to time enter private homes, wouldn't they, in their undercover identities?
Probably, yes.
And report what happened there in the usual way?
Yes.
Did you have in mind any rules or guidance as to the circumstances in which it was proper for a police officer to enter someone's home?
No.
In the normal course of uniform service, there are rules governing that, aren't there?
I believe so.
Did you give any thought to the legality and the circumstances in which it would be legal for an undercover officer to enter the home of a member of the public?
I don't think the thought occurred to me.
Could we have the YouTube stream back on, please? Sorry, of. Oh, I've got that right. Thank you. Could we have 26409 up, please? This is tab B50, sir. This is an intelligence report from HN19, dated the 27th of March 1985, page 1, paragraph 2. Thank you. Little is known of Privacy's early life, though it is understood that she was brought up in the privacy area. By her own account, she experienced a traditional religious education which progressed to reading for a degree in theology at university. A fellow student was Privacy, an RCP member who first became involved with the party in April 1983. He was posted to the Privacy branch in August 1984. At some stage, she moved in with Privacy at his flat at the address in Para 1, an arrangement which can only have been for convenience, since Privacy is a committed homosexual. Evidently, regular propaganda from Privacy had its effect, and Privacy started to attend RCP public meetings, paper sales, etc. in August 1984, if not earlier. And so it goes on. The passage that I want to draw your particular attention is that which records the identity or the sexual orientation of a member of the public in terms a committed homosexual. Would you accept that that is a homophobic way in which to record that person's sexual orientation?
I don't think it's homophobic, but somebody thought that was worth reporting.
Why the word committed?
I don't know that.
It's pejorative, isn't it?
I don't think so.
Was there a purpose in recording a person's sexual orientation?
You can envisage circumstances in which it would be important, yes.
What would they be?
It show you connections between people.
Could we take that down now, please? I want to ask you about the interaction between the SDS and the surveillance team. Is it right that you would have dealings with the surveillance team?
Yes.
And that you would from time to time see photographs which they'd taken?
I'm not sure about that at this stage, but it would be probable.
For example, would they bring over photographs from demonstrations so that your officers could seek to identify people who had attended demonstrations or partaken in disorder?
It's also probable.
And would it be right that you would therefore get to see, on occasions, your own officers in photographs taken by the surveillance team?
It's clearly possible, yes.
Perhaps at a demonstration, or perhaps if a particular location was the subject of surveillance. Are both of those things possible?
Yeah, possible.
Can you recall it happening?
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Is that simply because of the effluxion of time?
I believe so.
When you were recruiting future undercover officers, was anything said to them at the recruitment stage about sexual relationships with members of the public in their undercover identities?
Apart from warning them of the inadvisability of getting involved in an affair, no, I don't think there was.
That is, such advice is referred to in your witness statement. What is your evidence about when that advice was given?
You'd have given it in the interview that you'd had with somebody when they wanted to join the branch.
And
There's a possibility that they could get approached sexually and advise them against it.
a number of your former officers have different recollections. For example, Bob Lambert says that he was advised by a senior field officer on a trip to Boulogne that words to the effect that in the context of sexual relations, it's going to happen, keep it casual. Was that in fact the de facto advice that was given?
I can imagine it as an attitude. Yes.
Were you aware of that attitude at the time?
I don't think I was.
Was it an attitude that you shared?
No.
The advice to keep it casual would involve avoiding two problems that you identified in your witness statement, namely a deceived woman wanting to know too much and taking up too much time. Are you sure that the advice wasn't, it's going to happen, keep it casual?
No, I don't think so.
Bob Lambert has also given evidence that on a jog with a manager, he was given advice about sexual relationships to the same general effect. Did Bob Lambert jog with you or any of your management team?
I can't remember that.
Might one of your management team have said something to that effect to Bob Lambert?
I'm sorry, I was talking when you were talking then. I didn't get the question.
Forgive me. First of all, please do say what you were trying to say when I spoke.
I think I forgot. We did used to go jogging at lunchtime, the management team. But I can't remember. We were usually too busy running to breathe and talk about things.
Can you recall the subject of sexual relationships coming up?
Not really, no.
Is it possible that they did?
It's possible.
And what would the tenor of a casual conversation about sexual relationships undercover have likely consisted of?
As most of the members of the SDS were married men, or the policeman was not married, it was accepted that these things were not advisable.
Because it would involve infidelity?
That, yes.
Any other reason? Sorry?
And the same arguments as before, that too much time would be taken up with it and they'd want to know too much about you.
Other than it might be time-consuming and a security risk because probing questions would be asked, did you give any further thought to the potential consequences of sexual relationships between your officers and members of the public?
I didn't know things were going on like that.
Well, you were, I think it's fair to say from your statement, aware that there was at least a risk.
Oh, yes, it's always a risk, isn't there?
Did you give any thought to the potential consequences beyond those we've just mentioned?
Not really, no.
So presumably you thought that this was a risk worth running?
No, I don't think I thought it was a risk worth running because I didn't know it was so widespread and hoped it wasn't because they were married people.
think that's not quite what I'm driving at, Mr. Waite. You plainly did continue with deploying your officers when there was, to your knowledge, a risk of a sexual relationship. So you did run that risk, didn't you?
I think there's that risk between any organisation that has young men and young women together.
Did you regard it in those terms as just normal?
I suppose I would have done, yes.
So did you regard the risk as one which had to be taken and was unavoidable?
Do what we wanted to do, yes, I suppose I did, yes.
And was that influenced at all by how important the work of the SDS was considered to be?
Certainly by us it was considered to be important.
And was that reinforced by the counter-subversion element that you were assisting the security service with?
I'm sorry, I don't follow the question.
Was the importance of the work that Special Branch was doing reinforced in your mind by the importance of assisting the security service?
Yes, I think so.
Is it right that you took no further steps to avoid your officers getting involved in sexual relationships?
I couldn't imagine how you could do your job without getting involved.
Was that your impression at the time?
At the time, that was my impression, yes.
An inevitability?
In the right circumstances, if possible, yes.
The inquiry has heard evidence that the officer we know as HN67, and if you need to consult the cipher list without uttering the name, of course, you can refresh your memory as to who that is.
Oh. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen the name.
Yeah, thank you. We've had evidence that his own evidence was that he had a one-night stand with an activist. Did you know anything about that?
No, I didn't. That's the first time I've heard of that allegation.
Well, it's actually a confession. Would it follow from your answers up to this point that that's not something you would expect an officer to tell you?
Yes, I wouldn't expect it.
And something that you would not have been particularly interested in hearing because you regarded it as inevitable?
Didn't regard it as inevitable. I thought it was probable, or possible rather.
There is an allegation in relation to the same officer that he fathered a child. Did you ever hear any suggestion that HN67 had fathered a child?
No, I don't. It's the first time I've heard of this.
Any rumours, anything like that?
Nothing. I had no. I'm quite surprised.
HN12, you may again wish to consult the cipher key.
Yes.
As you were shown when you were making your statement, he told investigators that he had in fact engaged in sexual activity on 2 occasions with a woman whilst he was undercover. Your witness statement says that at that stage you didn't know about it. Is that still the position, or has anything come back to you since you made your witness statement?
I'm most surprised, particularly knowing the individual involved.
Turning now to Mike Chitty, I asked you earlier about the woman that we know as Lizzie. When did you first find out that Mike Chitty had been involved in a sexual relationship with Lizzie?
I think it was during this inquiry.
Do you know, did you ever hear anything about other sexual activity between Mike Chitty and female activists he was mixing with?
No, I didn't.
Are you sure that nothing was said, there was no banter or anything like that?
There's certainly nothing I can remember.
Bob Lambert has said that he was a little bit naive when it came to relationships as he deployed undercover. Is that a description of him that you would agree with?
I would think so. He was a married man with 2 children. Not completely, he couldn't have been completely naive, but yes, I would think that's a fair comment on that.
Did you address your mind to that at the time?
I don't think it is subject to woes, really, no.
So can I take it that you didn't do anything about it?
I didn't do anything because I didn't know anything.
Mr. Lambert has told us that there was nothing in his legend to deter a sexual relationship, for example, a fake girlfriend.
No, I think that was probably right. He was a labourer, a fencer in his Forest legend.
Why wasn't he advised to work something into his legend that might have prevented a sexual relationship from developing?
I don't know. I can't think of a reason now.
Would it be fair to say that UCOs were not advised to do so during your tenure?
I suppose so, yes.
There is a woman who we are referring to as CTS. Again, you may wish to consult the cipher list.
Yes. I can't recall that name from the past at all.
This is the first woman with whom Bob Lambert had a sexual relationship undercover, so far as we are aware. Mr. Lambert believes that you would have seen photographs from demonstrations which would have shown the 2 of them together. Might that have happened?
It's possible because I did cover several demonstrations where Bob Lambert was there, but I can't remember a woman being involved.
If you had seen photographs which either confirmed or suggested that there might have been an intimate relationship, would you have done anything about it?
I might have warned him verbally.
Warned him verbally what?
Not to get involved with another woman.
Not to get involved at all, or to keep it casual?
I think the advice would have been not to get involved at all, because I know he was a married man with 2 children.
The second woman that Mr. Lambert had a sexual relationship was a woman we call Jackie, with whom he had a child. Yes. You have told us in your witness statement that there came a time when Mr. Lambert did approach you to tell you that he might have made a married woman pregnant. Can you help us? Is my understanding right that you got that information from Mr. Lambert, or did it come to you from another source?
I believe it came from Mr. Lambert, though I know there's a suggestion that it came from somebody else. But I thought I had clear memories of Mr. Lambert telling me this thing, but I'm doubtful.
Was it a piece of news that would have stuck in your mind?
You would think so.
And why are you doubtful?
Well, I know that somebody else said that they told me, and it wasn't Bob Lambert, but I can't remember that.
Without breaching any restriction order and referring to the cipher list if you need to, who was that?
Oh, damn. I think I can. Oh. Right.
Thank you. I'm told that you've written something down.
I have.
Yeah, thank you.
My handwriting's appalling, though, so they can't be. I'm surprised. Not surprised.
Mike Barber. Was that the name?
Yeah.
Can I come back to the recollection that you told us about in your witness statement? Your recollection that it was Lambert
Yes.
that told you. What is your recollection of where that happened?
It was one of our secret houses.
Can you recall when?
It was after a meeting, and I can't remember the date, but it was a weekday, just an ordinary meeting of STS officers.
When Lambert spoke to you, who was present?
I think it was just the two of us.
And he was telling you about sexual activity in his undercover identity?
Yes.
Connected to his deployment?
Yes.
Can you recall the terms in which he spoke to you?
He just said that he had a married woman who got pregnant by him. Later, he was to tell me that there was another man who claimed responsibility for paternity. And so he was such a good worker, such a good producer of intelligence, that it put us in a very difficult position.
When he first spoke to you, was he clearly of the view that the child was his?
He didn't know at that time.
Are you sure about that?
No.
You've told us in your witness statement that you were satisfied that it wasn't clear that he was the father, or words to that effect. To what extent did you explore that subject with him?
I just asked him about her. Was she married? Was it with anybody else? And he said there was another man involved as well. This is, as far as I remember, it's a conversation between two of us. We were just about finishing a meeting. So I'm not going to be 100% accurate.
Did you advise Mr. Lambert to take any course of action?
Other than to be careful and to get, if you can, get out of this relationship.
If you can?
If you can. I had no good, I thought the damage had already been done to the woman, and I could see no way out from that.
So you were contemplating the possibility that Mr. Lambert might continue with the relationship?
I don't know whether I actually thought that.
Would your advice have been any different if Lambert had been unequivocal on the question of paternity?
Well, he was unequivocal. He didn't know he was the father.
Sorry, what I mean is that if he was certain that he was, would your advice have been any different?
I don't know. Too long after the event. Things would probably be different now.
I beg your pardon?
Things might have been probably different now, different standards. I don't know.
But back then?
It happened.
You tell us in your witness statement that you spoke to either D.I. Barber or D.I. Docker about it. At the time that Jackie fell pregnant, D.I. Barber was your second in command. Is it likely, therefore, that this conversation was with D.I. Barber?
It's possible, yes. And probably, more than that, it's probable.
Can you recall whether D.I. Barber already knew about it or not?
This I don't know.
The upshot of your conversation was that you decided to take no action.
Short of making a few inquiries, yes, that was it.
What
see how things panned out.
What inquiries?
We wanted to know who she was. We didn't know that at the time.
And who was she? Without using her real name?
No, I can't remember the name now. But from what we've done this afternoon, yes, I can. But
was it the woman that we are calling Jackie?
I think so. But I'm not certain of this.
Can you recall anything of the circumstances of the conversation that you had with Detective Inspector Barber?
Not really, not now, no.
Can you recall any of the content?
It's a general talk between the two of us. I was in charge and he was number two. And he probably had a better contact with the members of the squad than I did, but he was worth listening to. He was an intelligent man.
Was any written record made of the conversation that you'd had with with Sergeant Lambert?
No, it wasn't.
Why not?
Didn't seem necessary at the time.
Was any record made of the conversation that you'd had with Detective Inspector Barber?
No.
Again, why not?
It didn't seem germane to the issue.
I beg your pardon?
It didn't seem to be necessary.
Was it because you didn't want to make it official?
Probably.
And does that amount to accepting that your decision to do nothing was sweeping it under the carpet?
I don't think we were sweeping anything under the carpet. We were just trying to use this incident, which is unfortunate, to the best of our ability.
So would it be more accurate to say that you didn't think it was important enough to make an official record?
We didn't think it was necessary at that stage. If we'd got more details, we would have done some more.
Could you help me understand better why it wasn't necessary?
At that time, it seemed to be uncertain as to whether it was his child, and that affairs were clearly happening, which I was unaware of.
But you were aware, as a minimum, weren't you, that Mr. Lambert had had sex with a member of the public in his undercover identity?
His undercover identity, yes, I did know that.
And you were making no record of that?
No.
And you were doing nothing about it?
I thought I was. I just letting time go by so we'd find out some more, but we didn't.
Was that because you regarded sexual activity between undercover officers and members of the public as inevitable, or was it for some other reason?
I think I thought it was inevitable in the situation we put the men in.
Did you tell anyone in your chain of command about this news?
I have a memory of speaking to Ray Tucker.
Can you recall when you spoke to him?
Not really. It would have been a few days later.
Can you recall where you spoke to him?
It would have probably been in New Scotland Yard.
Can you recall the gist of what you said to him?
Well, the gist was that one of my undercover officers had got a girl into trouble.
And what was Mr. Tucker's reaction?
I think what I've said before, he just believed it was inevitable. It would happen occasionally.
A metaphorical shrugging of the shoulders?
I suppose so.
Did you tell anyone else?
No.
Do you know whether Mr. Tucker told anyone else?
That I don't know.
Could we have up, please, the last question before the break, 730311. This is a minute sheet. It's associated with the SDS annual report for 1985. Could we have expanded Chief Superintendent Golding's contribution dated the 30th of January 1986? Thank you. The Special Demonstration Squad has had another excellent year in its major role of gathering intelligence concerning possible threats to public order. Any problems that have arisen have been effectively contained by Chief Inspector Waite and his staff. Emphasis continues to be placed upon the welfare and morale of the officers in the field. As I say, this was in relation to the year 1985, and that was the year in which the pregnancy occurred.
Yes.
The reference, any problems that have arisen have been effectively contained by Chief Inspector Waite. Is that alluding to Jackie's pregnancy?
I don't know. I've read it twice and I'm still not certain where he's got that from.
Might it be?
Sorry.
Might it be an allusion to your handling of the news that Lambert thought he might have made a woman pregnant?
I'm not sure that Lord Golding ever knew about that.
Is it possible that news spread as a result of you speaking to Mr. Tucker?
It is possible.
Thank you, sir. Would now be a convenient time for our afternoon break?
Certainly. We'll break for 15 minutes.
Here we go.
Mr. Waite,
Good.
we were talking before the break about your communications up the chain of command, and I want to move down the chain of command. Did you say anything to your unit about what had happened?
No, I can't remember doing that.
Did you say anything in general terms about sexual relationships to your officers at the time?
Not at that time, as far as I can remember.
Why not?
I don't know. I suppose if you're going to want to keep a secret, you keep it to yourself. And Bob's doings were up to him.
But in terms of the fact you knew that one of your officers had been having sex with a member of the public, is the reason why you said nothing to your officers because you thought that these sorts of things were going to happen?
I always accepted that it could happen, yes.
Did you keep a closer eye on Mr. Lambert after this?
No, because I always believed him to be reliable and honest.
Well, you knew that there was a relationship with an activist. Does that mean that he was just left to manage that relationship himself?
No, we were always there for him if he wanted us. But I can't remember him coming to us with a problem again.
But you were not concerning yourself with whether the relationship continued or not?
We'd advise it should end, but didn't follow up on that. No.
Mr. Lambert's deployment continued. You will presumably have seen from time to time photographs of Mr. Lambert in the field from surveillance teams?
Yes.
And you will from time to time have seen him yourself during his deployment when you were acting as a cover officer?
Yes.
And so would some of your managerial colleagues?
We took it in turns.
Through either of those sources, did you become aware as to whether or not the relationship was continuing?
We didn't see him and didn't notice him with the woman.
Did you hear anything on the subject from any of your other undercover police officers?
No, it was not a subject of conversation.
Did you see any other intelligence from other sources which suggested that Mr. Lambert was still in a relationship with the woman we are calling Jackie?
No, never saw anything else like that.
Did you know that, in fact, Mr. Lambert remained in contact with Jackie from when the relationship started sometime in the autumn of 1984 until beyond the end of your time with the SDS?
I had no knowledge of that, no.
Did you ever ask him?
I can't remember now if I did or not. It seems likely I would have asked him, but I can't remember for certain.
You said in your witness statement that there appeared to be no reason to take action in this case. Did you follow it up in any way?
I'd obviously spoke to Bob Lambert at some stage because he told me that another man had claimed paternity. And we sort of said, well, that was the end of that then, and we can carry on doing our jobs as we saw it.
Might you be confusing that with another man adopted the child?
No, I didn't know about that. I do now, because I've been told, but not. When I was working, I never knew that.
Why didn't you take any further action?
I couldn't really see what I could do.
having sex with a member of the public in one's undercover identity is misconduct, isn't it?
I didn't know that at the time. I never gave it consideration.
It's discreditable conduct, isn't it?
So I'm not good on discipline. I don't know. I'm not certain. I should imagine so.
Did you address your mind to that question at all?
No.
If you had thought about it at the time, would you, in 1985, have thought that a serving police officer having sex in an undercover identity with a member of the public was conduct likely to bring discredit upon the Metropolitan Police Service?
I've thought about that now, but I can never remember thinking about it at the time.
My question was, if you had thought about it at the time, what would your 1985 self have thought about that?
I don't know. I can't imagine.
It appears to have transpired to be the case that Mr. Lambert was, in fact, the father of a child we know as TBS. You knew that there was at least a possibility that Mr. Lambert was the father of a child. Did you give any consideration to the consequences of a child being brought into the world deceived as to the real identity of his father?
Apart from my initial interview with Bob Lambert and one or two talks shortly after, I had nothing to do with this inquiry. And I didn't know the child had been born. And I didn't know that Bob Lambert had claimed he would look after the child.
Would it be fair to say that you gave no thought to the impact of events either on the mother or on the child?
I thought about it, but there seemed to be little I could do that would improve the situation.
Would you agree that Mr. Lambert was abusing his position as a police officer in forming a sexual relationship with Jackie?
I don't think that was the case. It was just a matter of mutual attraction, I think.
Implicit in that answer that it doesn't matter that he was deceiving Jackie as to his real identity as a police officer. Have I understood you correctly?
You understood me, but I mean, it covered his wife. And thought if we made inquiries too soon, we could ruin his marriage. Because we didn't know that time whether the child had been born and that Bob Lambert was claiming paternity.
Well,
we didn't know.
Well, if I've understood your evidence correctly, there were never any further inquiries. Is that right?
Not ostensible ones, no.
Well, what inquiries were there of any kind?
Well, between my Barbara and I, we might have spoken to Bob about it. I think more likely my Barbara than me, because he was more approachable, more friendly.
And what did he ascertain?
I don't know.
Did you talk to him about it?
Not extensively, no.
Did he tell you, is it a case of he might have told you at the time and you can't remember? Or that
it's very possible.
Would you agree that the way that Mr. Lambert behaved was immoral?
Yes, I would.
Shouldn't he have been withdrawn from his undercover deployment?
Bob Lambert was probably the best SDS officer, and his product was above anybody else's. And it would have been a valuable source of information we would have lost if we had taken that route.
So are you saying his conduct was overlooked because of the perceived quality of his intelligence?
made the decision much more difficult. I mean, if he'd have been a bad officer, we could have got rid of him easily, but he was not. He was a valuable member of the team.
Could we be clear, please? Are you saying that he'd behaved wrongly, but a decision was taken that his product was so valuable it should be overlooked? Or are you saying that what he did was not regarded as very serious, not a problem, something that would inevitably happen from time to time, carry on?
We regarded it quite seriously. The birth of a child is always important, particularly if it's not wanted.
But not so serious as to withdraw him?
It's in the time span that I was aware of this. She hadn't been born. I've learned more about this since I've been on this inquiry than I ever did when I was working.
But TBS had been born before you finished your posting.
I didn't know that.
Shouldn't Mr. Lambert also have been disciplined?
I didn't think so at the time, and I'm not sure it would have solved any problems if we'd have disciplined him then.
Why do you say that?
I don't see it does anybody any good.
He should have been investigated for misconduct in public office, shouldn't he?
I suppose now, yes, he would be. But at the time, I think we were rather lax in that way.
Because on your evidence, you told him not to get involved in sexual relationships.
Oh, yes.
And yet he had.
Yes, but that goes for many people in the police force, doesn't it?
And had he been withdrawn, he could not have gone on to deceive either Belinda Harvey or the woman we are calling RLC, could he?
I don't know about either of these two women.
Well, we've heard evidence that he did go on to deceive two more women, one of them over a protracted period of time.
I don't know this.
Wouldn't it have been clear to you at the time that if you have an officer who's having sex with a member of the public, one reason to withdraw him is to stop him doing it again?
I didn't know he was. I thought he'd taken my advice and was not involving sexual relationship with a woman.
Could we have a look at 748881? This is your witness statement. Page 155, paragraph 411. I am referred to an extract from an 8-monthly report on D.S. Lambert dated the 29th of May 1985. At this stage, Jackie is pregnant with TBS, and written by you. His common sense and enthusiasm have made it possible for him to work with a minimum of supervision, and he has obtained excellent results. I do not consider that Robert Lambert being subject to minimum supervision contributed to him having a sexual relationship whilst undercover. It did not appear necessary for us to exert extra controls over Bob Lambert at the time. Short of removing him from the squad, no extra supervisory control would have prevented him having a relationship given how undercover officers worked. First of all, common sense. How can you describe Bob Lambert having sex with a member of the public in his undercover identity, and on your evidence, possibly getting her pregnant, being common sense?
People have affairs who've got common sense. I can't. I didn't know these things. I thought he'd taken our advice and cut off his sexual relationships. I had no concept of him having other affairs.
Well, Bob Lambert knew about the pregnancy at the start of early in 1985, so it would appear it's likely you knew about the pregnancy by May. How could you write common sense about a man who had behaved like that?
His written work and the product of his intelligence was great. He got a commendation for his work on the SDS, and he just seemed to me a sensible, common sense man who unfortunately had an incident.
And the statement that short of removing him from the squad, no extra supervisory control would have prevented him having a relationship.
Right.
That might very well be right, but isn't that all the more reason to have removed him?
I didn't see what it would achieve. It would be useful. We would lose a good source of intelligence. And I didn't see what the job was going to gain from it.
There appears in your answers, Mr. Waite, to be a blind spot for the impact that Bob Lambert's behaviour had on Jackie and on Mrs. Lambert. Do you accept that in the evidence you've given about the various decisions you took, that you simply did not give any sufficient thought to the women involved in these events?
I must confess that I do regret not giving more support, certainly to Jackie, his wife, who I did know. And it's an unfortunate thing, but I did not associate the man with what you've been telling me this afternoon.
In modern parlance, it might be said that you had a misogynistic mindset. Would you accept that?
That could be true. I don't believe it is true because, well, I've been married for 60 years. I can't see I can be that misogynistic.
I mean it in the sense that you weren't considering the autonomy, the rights and the interests of the deceived woman and of Bob Lambert's wife.
Given how things are nowadays, I do accept that I did not give sufficient thought to the women involved.
And to the importance of their being able to give informed consent about the sexual activity they were getting involved in.
Yes, I accept that.
And that this wasn't simply an ordinary affair. It was a sexual liaison between a serving police officer in his undercover identity and a member of the public. And that is different, isn't it?
I didn't see that at the time.
Do you accept it now?
I think I accept it better now, yes. Things have changed.
Was any consideration given to informing the deceived woman, Jackie, who Bob Lambert really was?
No.
Why not?
That revealed the workings of the SDS, and we were anxious to keep that secret.
Was any consideration given to the best interests of the child, that is to say, the person we are calling TBS?
I regret to say no, we didn't.
Any consideration given to financial, social, or emotional consequences?
I'm afraid not, no.
Was any consideration given to the Metropolitan Police Service's responsibility towards Jackie and TBS?
Well, we felt the job had put Bob in a position that he did what he did. But I don't think beyond that the police had any effect on the incident.
Well, in terms of the fact that it was the MPS which put him in that position and he was acting in the course of his duties,
Yes.
didn't that give rise to responsibilities to them both, not least in relation to the financial cost of bringing up TBS?
I don't think it occurred to me at the time.
Were you aware that Mr. Lambert was paying some form of maintenance to Jackie?
No, I did not know that.
Were there any regular payments that he was making which might have been those maintenance payments that you were aware of?
I wasn't aware of any maintenance payments at that time.
Were you ever asked by the Metropolitan Police Service, before you were first interviewed by Operation Hearn, whether Bob Lambert had fathered a child undercover?
I was never asked that, no.
Going to read to you another part of the apologies made by the Metropolitan Police Service in the course of this inquiry. It reads, "The MPS recognises the seriousness of these failings. Much of the evidence of misconduct and all the SDS's manager's evidence will be considered in T2, P2 and in due course in Module 2B hearings. Nonetheless, the MPS can say at this stage that the SDS should have been the subject of robust oversight and intervention by senior managers so that professional standards and conduct were reviewed and maintained throughout its duration. Poor standards and misconduct should have been identified and dealt with swiftly before they became embedded into the culture of the unit. UCOs whose conduct fell below acceptable standards should have been identified, removed from the field, and disciplined where necessary." Do you now agree with that?
I would agree with that, essentially, yes.
So would that be a convenient moment at which to finish for the day?
Yes, I think you've done remarkably well, if I may say so. Would you mind resuming tomorrow at 10? And we will have, I believe, no longer a day than we've had today. Are you content to do that? Sorry, is my voice not being picked up?
Yes. You're talking to Tony Waite. Yes, I'm prepared to be here at 10.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you were speaking.
Not at all. Thank you. Then we'll resume at 10 tomorrow, and as I say, all being well, your day tomorrow will be slightly shorter than today, but not that much shorter. Thank you.